Over the past few weeks, MND has looked at a variety of topics from the Sermon on the Mount. MND has examined how to live differently in so many ways, starting from our attitudes to our thoughts, from our judgments, to prayer life, to our path choices, to our focus on Jesus, and many, many more. Tonight, we're going to conclude the Sermon on the Mount by looking at building on the rock. If you have your Bibles available, or you have the Bible app, or you just want to Google real quick, we're just going to take a look at Matthew 7:24 through 7:29 or through 29. And I believe that maybe Jess might put this up in the chat if it's easier for you. But I'm looking at the ESV version right now. So Matthew 7:24 through 29. Everyone then who hears these words of mine and does them will be like wise men who built his house on the rock. And the rain fell, and the floods came, and the winds blew and beat on that house. But it did not fall, because it had been founded on the rock. And everyone who hears these words of mine and does not do them will be like a foolish man who built his house on the sand. And the rain fell, and the floods came, and the winds blew and beat against that house. And it fell, and great was the fall of it. And when Jesus finished these sayings, the crowd was astonished at his teaching, for he was teaching them as one who had authority, and not as their scribes. So what do we know? There will be rains, there will be floods, and there will be winds. Years ago, someone always said, if you're not currently in the storm, you're either getting ready to get in it or you're just leaving it, right? And we see there will be rains, there will be floods, and there will be winds. We don't know always the extent of the rain or the flood or the wind, but we do know that it's coming. Sometimes the rain is light, but seems to last forever. Sometimes the rain is intermittent, but the force changes sporadically. Sometimes the rain is like a monsoon and dumps a year's worth of moisture in 10 minutes. Sometimes the flood is like a minor inconvenience, and sometimes the floods will change the landscape. Sometimes the winds are a breeze, but are enough to fan a flame, and sometimes the winds are strong enough to knock you over. And we know that as Jesus talked in parables, he revealed truth about the real world, but also challenged us to look to the spiritual implications of our lives. Yes, we will all experience literal, physical rain, floods, and wind. But it is more than that. We will experience real challenges in all aspects of our lives. Challenges with our physical, mental, and spiritual health. Challenges with family, friends, neighbors, and community. Challenges with our chosen career, hobbies, and activities. Some of these will feel like a light rain or that cool breeze, and others will feel like a tornado wrapped in a monsoon with a tidal wave of garnish. What Jesus is asking is how you plan to not only survive the rain, the floods, and the wind, but to thrive in them. Let's take a quick break and think of another story. This one isn't from Matthew, but rather James. No, not that James of the Bible, but a different James. This is James Hollowell Phillips, the author of, you guessed it, The Three Little Pigs. The three little pigs had to go out and experience the world and were in need to build a house for shelter. And as we know, there was a struggle of what to do, a struggle between right and wrong, to do what society says or to do what God directs. These three little pigs had to fight the pull of playing and dancing and living in the moment versus building for the future. As we know, the first pig didn't want to work at all and therefore built his house quickly using straw. The second pig worked a little bit, but was still lazy and built his house with sticks. The third pig took his time, worked hard, and built his house with bricks. Now let's look what that means. Straw, sticks, and bricks represent our approach and beliefs in this world. First, let's look at the straw. Building with straw is like disregarding God's teaching and direction to provide shelter for our lives. Instead, the first pig did little to no prep, grab nearby and easily attained items that are ready and available all over the ground so that he could build his house and get back to the party life. Why? Because this pig faced FOMO, fear of missing out. He focused on comparisons to other people's lives and what they were doing rather than God's direction. What happens when we simply rely on society to provide what we need? We will fail. Society and culture encourages us to follow your heart. You do you, or lean into your own understandings. When we focus on YOLO, our lives don't turn out like God intended, and they don't turn out very well. Now let's take a look at the sticks. Building with sticks is like using some of God's teaching, but more focused on quick fixes and, you guessed it, checking the boxes. Instead of putting in the required effort, the second pig did some work by cutting and gathering of branches, but then quickly built his house and moved on. Ultimately, he checked the box so he could return to the party. Why? Because this pig focused on the appearance of doing what's right by God. But still, he was more focused and concerned with societal pressures. Is it more important to be aligned with God or to be impressive on Instagram or Facebook? Imagine the second pig was standing on the hard sands of a breathtaking beach. You've all seen that picture on Instagram, captivated by the lust of the view, but not realizing that he was still on sandy ground that was moving and shifting beneath his feet. Are we like this second pig? Checking the box of going to church, checking the box of attending a Christian get-together, but not living out the message, checking the box of Bible study, but not applying what we learn, not being coachable, checking the box of family, but not leading nor being the light of Jesus for others? Are we going through the motions of what looks good from the outside and forgetting that God is looking at our hearts? Once again, is the focus on internal change or external actions? Well, now let's look at the bricks. Building the bricks is like applying God's teaching and direction to create a solid and sturdy shelter of our lives. Instead of following the ways of YOLO and FOMO, the third pig chose hard work and preparation by combining several ingredients to make the bricks. And this is all provided by God and his teachings and the people around him. He followed that with patience and planning, and he executed a strong house. Why? Because this pig knew that internal change was more important than external actions, and therefore focused on God's word and the teaching of others to build a strong home, which was God's design. Earlier, I said, don't lean on your own understandings, and many of you have already thought about Proverbs 3, 5, and 6. Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways, acknowledge him, and he will make your path straight. It's not leaning on your own understanding, but trusting in God's design. It's a surrender to his way, not ours. It's the heart work. We see God's design modeled all throughout. God is in creation. Just look all around nature. God is in our very being. Just look at yourself. God is in our relationships. Just look to his design for marriage and friendship. God's design is everywhere.
Long story short, the tour was winding down last time around. We were in Tyler, Texas. The night was over. A guy walks up to me. I wish I could tell you the whole story. It was so of God. Introduces himself to me, says, how are you doing? I just wanted to say hello. I said, it's nice to meet you. He says, you guys winding the tour down? Where are you going to go from here? I said, well, I'm on my way back home to Atlanta, Georgia. He said, well, what's next for you? I said, I'm going to be preaching the next 2 Sundays for my pastor back in Atlanta. He said, oh, cool. What are you preaching on? I said, well, the series is on the glory of God in the human body. He said, that's really amazing. I'm a molecular biologist at the university down the road. Give me your talk. And I was like, oh, wow, I wasn't quite yet ready to unload the talk for a molecular biologist. So I kind of stumbled through what I had, and he's kind of being kind and gracious and like, that's good. And then he says, well, what's your big left hook? You got to have a left hook, a big finish, right? I said, I don't have a left hook yet. He said, oh, Louis, oh, man, your left hook is laminin. And I'm totally blank on laminin. He goes, Louis, it's a cell adhesion molecule. Protein molecule? Do you know about proteins? I'm like, no. He said, Louis, cells organize into certain molecular structures, and that determines what protein there are. But one of them is a cell adhesion molecule. It's organized into this certain structure, and that tells the cell what its job is in the body. And this one is a cell adhesion molecule. And I'm like, all right. He said, no, Louis, it's like the rebar of the human body. The steel they put in the concrete when they lay the foundations of things, it's that stuff. It's holding your membranes together. It's the glue of the human body, Louis. It's laminin. You got to tell them about laminin. And I'm like, I promise you, I'm going home and tell them about laminin. And I'm sure when I do, revival is going to sweep across the church and probably around the world when I tell them. He said, no. You got to see laminin. I'm like, okay, let's see it. He said, no. You need to go look it up online. You need to go Google laminin. I'm like, I don't even know how to spell laminin. Takes his card out. He writes on the back, Laminin. I'm like, okay, I cannot wait to get to my computer and get on Google, click on images, type in laminin, and I'm waiting, and these little thumbnails come up on the screen, and I'm like, wow. That's laminin? The cell adhesion molecule. Woo! I am so excited. I am beside myself. I cannot believe what I'm seeing. I love laminin. I'm so fired up. You should see laminin, I guess. That's the thing, right? Okay. Here is a scientific diagram of the laminin cell adhesion molecule that's holding your body together right now, okay? This is what I found right here. No, come on, that's crazy. That's just crazy. I just can't believe it. I emailed that guy back so fast, I'm like, wow, what in the world? He said, you want to see an actual laminin molecule? I'm like, oh no, man, the diagram was cool for me. I'm happy with that. Don't bother sending anything else. I'm like, yes! And he sends me this image, an electron microscopic image of an actual laminin protein molecule. It looks just like this. Like, how crazy is that? That the stuff that holds our bodies together, that's holding the lining of your organs together, holding your skin on, is in the perfect shape of the cross of our Lord Jesus Christ. And immediately I'm thinking about the words of Paul in Colossians 1. You know this. And he, Jesus, is before all things, and in him, that is, in Jesus Christ, all things hold together. It's right there. I'm like, of course they do. Of course they do. Everything holds together in Jesus Christ.
So how about that, huh? The laminin holds it together. So let's take another look and take this to another level. But before we do, let's read back one more time, Matthew 7:24. Everyone then who hears these words of mine and does them will be like a wise man who built his house on the rock. And the rain fell, and the floods came, and the winds blew and beat on that house, but it did not fall because it had been founded on the rock. Up until now, we talked about the three little pigs. We talked about how you built your house. Will you focus on society or the teachings of God? And that got us from the straws to the sticks to the bricks. But we need to take it to the next level. Because not only was the brick house made of great ingredients, it was built on a solid foundation. But is it that easy? What does it actually take to make a solid foundation? First off, we need to look at the ground. You know, sand seems amazing. When you're at the beach, it looks level, it looks smooth, it looks plentiful. And as Pat talked about a couple weeks ago, kind of like the wide path. It even looks beautiful on Instagram and all the Facebook posts. But what do we know? Looks can be deceiving. The rock is where we need to focus our eyes. It may seem a little rougher or harder to find, just like the narrow gate. We need to find strength in the rock. We need to find the rock in which to build. We cannot build on the shaky and soft sands that move when the winds blow. Second, we need to look at the layout of the foundation. I don't know if you've ever built anything, whether it's from IKEA or a house, but how frustrating it can be when you're trying to lay out that foundation. Because walls will be built on your foundation, your house. Well, when they're built on that foundation, they rely on straight lines and corners. Do we want a foundation that appears to be straight and in line? Or do we require a foundation built on the truth and know what is straight and true? Do you know the truth? Have you guys ever heard the truth about the 3-4-5 right angle? If you're ever building something and you're in construction, you don't have anything to figure out if you've actually got a 90-degree corner. It's very simple. There's a rule. There is a truth in building. It says that if one side of a triangle measures 3, could be 3 inches, 3 feet, 3 centimeters. But if one side of a triangle measures 3 and the adjacent side measures 4, then the diagonal between those 2 points must measure 5 in order for it to be a right angle. A foundation with irregular or unequal sides or rounded corners will not have enough strength as more walls go up and floors are added. We need the truth to find out if it's straight, not just by looking and guessing. If you're off by an inch at the ground level, you could be off by feet as the home continues to grow. Third, we need to look at the most important part of the foundation, and that's the cornerstone. We cannot simply choose anything to become the cornerstone of the foundation of our home. If the entire shelter and structure is to stand firm, it must start with the strongest cornerstone possible. Sandstone and limestone may look like solid rocks, but we have all seen how erosion can eat away and reduce them to mere dust. This is why we need to build our foundation on the most solid of rocks. Think back to the video about laminin. In today's world, we have found new ways to make foundations and cornerstones even stronger. When laying a foundation, we use rebar inside of the concrete. Rebar strengthens in the concrete by holding everything together. A cornerstone that is built with rebar or a cornerstone in our lives of laminate doubles the strength of that material. It is God's design in action. So finally, let's take a look at this in a practical sense. Is the point of this message to just get it and move on? Or should we do what Jesus asks of us and apply internal change to our lives? We need to pause and ask ourselves how we can truly put this into action. What does it look like to have a firm foundation? How can I make sure that I have a solid cornerstone? How can I focus on the truth to keep my house strong as I continue to build? It starts with a cornerstone, it starts with a foundation, and from there we can use what God gives us to impact others and be the light of Jesus.